People are slowly dropping in, but I think now is the moment when we can start. So welcome everybody to our lecture series documenting the war Ukraine 2014 until 2022, which today obviously will be held in English without translation. My name is Sandra Frimmel. I'm an art historian and working at the Department for Slavic Studies here in Zurich. And before I welcome and introduce our guest, Alevtina Kakhidze, I'd like to give a few organizational reminders. After Alevtina's presentation, there's going to be a talk between Alevtina and me. And as always, you are very much encouraged to join us and ask questions or give comments. Please write them in the Q&A, or as it is here, F and A, please. Don't use the chat. The chat is for more internal use among the organizers. As always, the session will be recorded, so you can watch it or re-watch it afterwards, or you can share it with people who didn't have the possibility to come here today. And now I'd like to give a very warm, a more than warm welcome to our guest, Alevtina Kakhidze. Thank you so much for being here with us today in the evening. I'm so happy that she is here because over the last few weeks, we just weren't sure whether she could actually be able to join us live today because of the power cuts caused by the destruction of Ukrainian infrastructure. That's why we recorded the presentation and our conversation over the weekend to have a backup. So today's event will be almost kind of, I don't know, a reenactment for both of us, or maybe the premiere after the rehearsals. And all the happier I really am to have you here live with us today, and I hope nothing will interrupt us during the next 90 minutes. Alevtina Kakhidze is a visual artist, and she was born in Donbas region. She studied at the Art Academy in Kiev and at the Jan van Eyck Academy in Maastricht. She not only does drawings, but she also works with video and also appears as a performer. Widely known, for example, is her performance Where the Wild Things Are at Manifesta 10 in St. Petersburg in 2014, shortly after the annexation of Crimea, which she did as a formative dialogue where she answered 20 political questions in 3 different roles as a tourist mediator and a fighter. And there is a video of this performance on YouTube, and for all of you who know or who understand at least Russian, I highly recommend it because I find it very impressive. And it was just about the annexation, after the annexation of Crimea. And in addition to this work, she also does workshops with young adults and children. And since 2019, she offers an artist residence in Muzici, a village just outside Kiev, where she lives. Alevtina Kakhidze started drawing the war during the Maidan protests in winter 2013-14 and did not stop until today. Just today, the 8th of November, she posted her last drawings on Facebook. And now she will give us an insight into her artistic approach, which is by no means strictly documentary, but we will talk about this later. And so now, Alevtina, the floor is all yours. I'm very much looking forward to the presentation of your drawings.
Hello, great. Thank you, Sandra, for your introduction of me. I also will remind that somehow I reenact this performance I did in Manifesta when I was answering questions, political questions. I did in Centre de Pompidou, and it's also is recorded and it's possible to find online. And it was the answering questions to Western audience. It also was about the war, about recent situation. But today we are talking about drawings. So, and my ambition is to talk about almost 9 years. So we try to talk about this pretty long time, but it's also very intense for Ukraine. And since I'm going to talk about my drawings, so I will share my screen, and we just basically go from one drawing to another drawing. And some of my drawings already have a lot of text, but still I try to say you something which is not drawn, not written on the drawings. As you said, Sandra, some insights about the drawing. So can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah, yes.
So I will start, as Sandra said, from Maidan. So here at the left, my drawing about the episode of a long-term protest. We call it Euromaidan, Revolution of Dignity. And I'm here in a blue coat. I'm standing in front of the police, and police threw grenades to our side. Some people are singing, some people are scared. Some people try to actually look from the balcony, something like this. So basically this drawing was about 18 February 2014, 3 p.m. And the drawing, which is at the right, actually is a drawing from the courtroom of the man who was the head department of the police, which behaved very violent. His name is Vyacheslav Lukash. This is the story about me and an artist who was over here, just in the epicenter of those events. And then later, till now, I'm going to court sessions in order to draw what is happening in the situation that Ukraine tries to get some justice, because the story about these 3 months and a half was very complicated. And here another drawing of mine. It's so complicated map of everything what happened in Ukraine briefly, of course. For instance, here, 95,000, actually the people who have to be and already were witnesses in a courtroom. So they had some evidences, what they saw, what they could see during the very hard events in that time, 2013, 2014. And here, for instance, the story about the day I was just near, it was 18 to 19 February. And you see that 18 protesters were killed. So I also could be killed. Next image, which is a bit below, so it's 20th February. You could see that 48 protesters were killed by police from guns. But police also was a target. You can see that 13 policemen also were killed. So it was absolutely a battle. So this is another drawing of mine. Very complicated story of Ukraine, which is still going on. And after what happened, after we have got annexation of Crimea, the time when Ukraine was very weak, our president left the country. I mean, protesters or this long-term protest made him to leave the country. Actually, we got the annexation of Crimea by Russia. And I also did draw this. So if you do remember the time, it was March 2014, there were people which were called Zelёные человечки, people were in uniform. And there was not so strong as now we have in Ukraine, but some resistance. So here, a bit about this, and here, and here, and here. This is another event. I really like to talk about it more in details. After annexation of Crimea, we have got facilities in the east of Ukraine. And I know this so much in details because my mom lived over there. And since the first events with armed people appeared in her city, she started just basically phone me and tell me everything what she saw, and I transformed this information into text and drawings. Of course, I did trust her so much. Here, for instance, she's going from her garden to her house, and there is this checkpoint which appeared in her city. This is the flag of this illegal Donetsk People Republic at the time. And this is our neighbor who was receiving Russian rubles to be with the Kalashnikov. And here are other people who trying to dig trenches, something like this. So next, like she's again in her garden and she see military tanks and other cars going through her garden. And I remember that she was trying to count off of this, like 50, then she was lost. So it is all this spring 2014. And so he's in her garden again, and then shelling started more. She's in a cemetery, again, phoning to me why she's in a cemetery, because the mobile coverage was not working in the town, and there was only one spot in the whole city, just the cemetery. And all people are coming there to give phone calls or to be with their relatives talking. So the cemetery, let's say, transformed to some media hub, would say, but still very crazy. I mean, and the things around, you just can read. So my drawing sometimes doesn't need me talking about the drawings, but it's still, if we are talking at the moment, why not? I will give you more details about this. At the right, the Happy New Year of my mom, 2014, 2015. And she actually doesn't watch any fireworks, but the shellings from her window. And here, actually, very important day for the history of my town. It's 16th of August, when Ukrainian army went to the city, and there was a battle between our army and pro-Russian armed groups. And you can see in the drawing what was happening. The woman was killed on my street. My mom, she was in the cellar. She survived. The dogs were crazy. So city was liberated of Russian armed groups. But then in a month, in something more, unfortunately, Ukrainian army couldn't be in a city. They left, and city became occupied till now. So my mom was in an occupation for 5 years, from 2014 until last day of her life. So she died 2019, just on the checkpoint. She got heart attack. It was very cold. It was in January. And here, how I imagine, I also have to tell you that everything what I did draw about occupied hometown and the story where my mom is involved, it's so much about reconstruction, because I just trust everything what my mom told me and try to imagine then and did draw. So this is actually how I imagine she died. And then I received a phone call from the occupied territory from a man who was a worker on the place where people can be warm or something like that, but still she was standing on this checkpoint for more than 6 hours. And not only she died in this week, it's something like 6 people died. So, and I didn't go there. I received her body, and here is a memorial I did dedicated to my mom in my village from where I'm talking about. And what is about, it's my house where I grew up, and the house where my mom lived until her last day. You can see the drawing of this house, and here the vertical things are like doors, and you can recognize some rooms. For instance, here was the living room, and here was my bedroom, and here the stairs. So basically, my mom didn't want to leave this house. The house kept her in this occupied territory, and this is why symbolically I, let's say, moved the house of her to the village where I buried her. So this was my drawing. And the drawing before, this is actually again my childhood. All the time I was drawing the city of my mom, where I grew up, and I was not there for 8 years since the first armed people appeared in the town. So I just tried to imagine everything, the streets, how many schools were there. So here is actually me, very little girl, and my school. And another school, my mom told, was without windows because there was the shellings and many things. So let's see when I will be in her town again, in city Zhdanovka. So here is actually the time very near to us. It's mid of February, basically 14th of February 2022. And if you remember the time when all international media were talking that it would be Russian whole-scale invasion to Ukraine. So they were talking about this, I would say, from beginning of February. And all my friends started to, from the West, started to ask me, Alevtina, tell us, who are you? How are you? How are you? And can you just show your windows? What is happening in your country? And I said, yeah, everything is fine, looks like fine. And I did draw myself in this expectation. So I'm in this pose, expecting something, but still I was not sure. At the right, all those Russian troops, which all media reported they were standing near Ukrainian-Russian border. And here in the boxes with red ribbons, it's so much about the weapon which were sent to Ukraine, and I put them like gifts with red ribbons. So this was the mid of February. This drawing was very interesting because at that time, of course, I didn't know what would happen in, let's say, 10 days. So this is again mid of February. Oligarch left the country. Maybe you didn't know that it was also some sign that many rich people left the country, in Ukraine. So in another date, which was very interesting to remember, 16th of February, I don't know why, media started to report this date that Russian whole-scale invasion would happen just in this date, 16th of March. And I did draw myself with 3 signs: no war, war, snow. It was in morning. And in this day, nothing happened. And in the evening, I did this drawing where I wrote, I just want to say, if it is no war today, do not mean it is no war. So next drawing, maybe it's pretty complicated for you to understand. It's some news about what was in Russian parliament. So of course we were trying to follow what is going on in Russia. So here more about news from Russia. There was the day that President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, he said that Ukraine has some debt. So this is the number of debt. Now I don't remember this. This is so important that I just did draw this. So I did draw every day. And for instance, here, basically the first drawing when the Russian whole-scale invasion actually took place. And I did draw this after 2 days. I did draw like, what is hallucination? And I was talking to Immanuel Kant, said, look, so far from your tractate about propential peace. And the drawing which is at the right, you can understand that this drawing is talking about what I did when the whole-scale invasion took place. I didn't run away, and actually I draw myself besides 2 plants that I think that this world is broken, no safe place is anymore anywhere, that why I stand as a plant and do not run. But it was strange decision because later it was hard time. You can see I'm in a cellar And he is my husband. He is in defense battalion. He is with a gun, not only him, but many people from my village. Here, my birthday, where I wrote that the shellings is like a firework. My friends order it for me. I just try to be ironical or even with sense of humor. Why? Because when you allow yourself some sense of humor, it means you're not so much victim, I would say. This is how I interpret this. So my drawings with many texts, maybe you will have time later to read all the texts. So here again, I'm in a cellar and there's the conversation between me and my friend from Belgrade. And he's asking me how I am in those crazy times. And I ask Marco, can you teach me to hate Russians as you hate Americans? You know that there are some people in Belgrade who do hate Americans, and he's answering like, it's easy, Alevtina. Russians pretend to be bigger Americans than Americans themselves. So for me, it was very important just also have some conversation with somebody. And this was the situation around me. So here is me in front of my studio, and it was of March, and here the Russian troops. Basically, they were stopped by Ukrainian army 5 kilometers from me. Very close, very close. And of course, I was very close to imagine my village occupied. And I did imagine this so often, or just maybe this drawing I show you. So here I imagine, so what I'm afraid of, like to be wounded. I wrote a bit, of course. I just didn't want it. I just imagined that I will leave my hand. Or if, for instance, I'm killed, and I wrote that I'm not afraid because anyway, we will die. And then I wrote that I can't be occupied because it's not possible. I'm free in mind, but I was wrong because I didn't understand that it would be not so easy. You could be raped, you could be without food, you could be really with a lot of things to suffer. And here something like about Russian roulette, that it's like was not clear which house would be in a target, and you could be next to a house which would be destroyed, and your house would be stand as like protected, but it doesn't mean you can influence on this somehow, not like Russian roulette, as I wrote. And here it's interesting, another image. I think it was ironical, and it just probably was a very strange moment. Probably I was scared because I wrote that I'm preparing my house, made my house very beautiful, and I decorated my house in order, if Russian will be in my house, they will die because it's so beautiful. And here I'm in a bus. I'm having a bus, and here in the window is bach, bach, bach. And I decided to do it. Doesn't matter that there was a shelling, because sometimes you just really like to have proper life and proper things to do. And here my mobile phone, and probably I was watching something what Zelensky was saying to Ukrainians, and he was saying like, drive the civil out. And I just, I said, answering like, dear president, give me it. I will clean it first because it's brainwashed. Yeah, so now we will go to the story that my village was liberated by Ukrainian army. So this is the day, it was beginning of April. I remember the day I went to cafeteria of my village in center, and it was so many Ukrainian military men, and then I saw a lot of ammunition of Russian soldiers. So at the left, the photo of mine. So I did take a picture of this handbag of Russian soldier, and you could see the surname of him. Of course, I didn't see this guy, but still I did draw this guy. So his face is very innocent, and the drawing titled Lost in Ukraine. So after we all found out what happened in the villages and little places which were occupied, probably you also knew the name of places like Bucha, Irpin, Makarov, Matizhev, places where so many civilians killed, tortured, raped, even kids, not only women. So, and I actually didn't go there immediately because it was not allowed for civilians, because military men, they worked on the mines and many different things, but still we saw many images, reportages from the spot, and you can see the drawing on the left. When I see in phone, and I just imagine this red spot of blood. So this is the drawing I did. And here is me in Muzic, in my village, and Bucha, the place where 500 civilians were killed. I said approximately number and not the correct. And this place, from my place, 47 minutes by car. Then I was invited to give this image for a poster in public space in Vienna. And then I add the how many hours by car from Vienna to this place, which called Bucha, actually not far, 15 hours. So after, when my village was liberated, many of my neighbors, they went to center of village and also just started to talk to each other, because before we were really like in cellars. And then all my neighbors, they were saying, oh, Alevtina, how we hate Russians, really like, oh, we hate. And it was so emotional for me to listen them, and I didn't know how to draw it. And as you see, I draw many containers where all my neighbors put all this hate, all this hatred of Russians. So some of them, they do hold vase or some pots, saucepans, and here even the fire, which made these hatreds more and more hot, because the war is still going on. This is again about what Ukrainians do feel to Russians, unfortunately. So, and of course I do about Russia so much, about Russian society, about what is happening in this country, because it's also important for us. And this drawing was very, very early drawing in February. I tried to understand what is happening in this kind of a drawing from above. So Ukraine is in a war, and here is written like spецоперация. And some people do believe in TV propaganda in Russia. They believe that it's just special military operation, nothing, something like war. But some people could see in holes. They understand what is happening, but they are not so many, but still they are. In the beginning, Ukrainians, they did have hope that those people who do understand what is happening in Ukraine could do something. There was this hope, I remember this. But then we understood that, unfortunately, we look at the reality differently. For instance, here, my drawing about the story which happened. So Russia bombed Ukrainian Holocaust memorial, which is called Babin Yar. And Ukrainian artist Nikita Kadan, he posted this drawing and the text Russia bombed Babin Yar today. And Russian curator Ekaterina Degat, she commented, not Russia, Putin did. It was a very emotional moment for Ukrainians. Again, remember the handbag I showed you by Russian soldier. Of course, this handbag belongs to a Russian soldier, not to Putin. I knew it, that it's not the Putin war, it's just the war of many Russians. And then I started to think about this more and more voices, something like Russian curator Ekaterina Degat, for instance, Olaf Scholz. He also said, this war is Putin's war. And I tried to talk even to Olaf Scholz, which is also absolutely not happened. I'm saying, look, if you say that this war belongs to Putin, not to Russians, it means Russians, they are like animals. I have to care. They can't carry responsibility. I just only have to feed them. And actually, again, when I decided to stay in my village, many of my neighbors, they left because they have kids and they just left, and they left their houses for me to take care. And basically, I knew it about the animals. I did draw all those animals. So the turtles and chickens. So this story is about this. And then I also just created this drawing. Putin didn't create Russians, Russians created Putin. And I put an Instagram, and there were many, many comments like, it's unfair, no, no. And then I said, okay, Putin didn't create all Russians. Some Russians created Putins, not all Ukrainians killed, some are left. So I just did many exercises. You can see this play with this word Putin. You can see that like could be a lot of connections to this person. Like you can see some manipulated by Putin's propaganda, or anti-Putin but imperialist, or just anti-Putin. Putin supporters, they could be in Russia, also not only in Russia. So it was some exercises I did it in March when Russian troops were not far from me, like 5 kilometers or something. So it's again, so many drawings about Russian. This is the family of Russian intellectuals which are going to the West. And it's a family, and the father says, oh, we are not responsible. They are responsible. Some people who do support Putin. And the mother says, no, it's not they, it's Putin. And the baby says, no, it's not Putin, it's Wolf from a fairy tale. Okay, so this is the drawing about. Or I started also think maybe who is responsible? Maybe just the Russian literature. So I did draw Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. And so this Russian culture is looking for an alibi that it's not a killer. And you see there with the candles, and they try really like to find some evidence they are not a killer. Or more, Joseph Brodsky and Pushkin. And in the pockets, there was some evidence because they produce so many pages which actually demonstrate some imperialistic opinions. But still, it's so much about people who are not alive, but still no reflection about this. This is why we, I mean, or me, very critical about Russian literature, why it's trying to find an alibi. It's not a killer. And, but this man who is saying this is the director of Russian museum in St. Petersburg, Hermitage. He's alive, he's not dead, but again, what he's saying, it's really like so hard to interpret because all these attempts of Ukrainians or asking Russians to look on their literature to find some imperialistic pages and to give some critique about this. So this man, his name is Petrovsky, he just interpreted this in a way that all world do criticize Russian culture because it's so strong. Not that it's something wrong with this Russian culture, but just because it's very strong. So, and actually it's his quote, I didn't invent anything. I just used his interview. Yeah, and he's more, so this is a discussion with a creator from Belgrade who is saying, or not from Brussels, I'm sorry, from Brussels. And he's saying that, oh, I'm helping a Russian artist because she's a refugee. I said, no, he's not a refugee because even Ukrainians are not refugee. We just received temporary protection. And then he said, oh, she's a dissident. I said, no, she's not dissident because it's really needed to be political pressure evidence. And I'm saying that this person is economic migrant. So this drawing very heavy critique. What is here? Maybe it's, so here it's written that it's some pieces from Schelling and here in my head. So I took from not far from my house, like 900 meters. So it's actually military pieces. So the shelling was very close, and I went and took some parts of it. And I also tried to do some work for Russians. So just imagine if it's so hard for Russians to protest in front of the police because it's dangerous. Maybe Russians have to protest in front of the TV of their family members, because the family members sometimes do believe in Russian propaganda. Maybe they have to protest over there. I'm thinking maybe it still will work and not enough applied. But this work, no one asked me to do, but I tried. But in my drawing, it's sometimes so much about my opinion or some ideas. So, and this is also my conversation to Russian artists. So I ask them just to make some choice to be with their own people, because again, I'm sometimes even thinking about Russian soldiers which are lost. Remember my drawing? So sometimes I said, who will help them to understand that unfortunately it's not a good idea for them to go to Ukraine and to take part in this war. So, and this drawing is actually, I tried to draw something like, I imagine the fault of each Russian citizen. And this is how I can measure, and of course it's very ironical, how I can measure who is more responsible, or the artist, or the mother of a soldier, or the people from the TV who are producing this propaganda. I can't say, I really can't say. So, and this is more and more, here the Russian journalist, and here the opposition leader. I have many critics on all of those people, so you can read later. And here, Russian artist again, who wrote on Facebook that she can't go to Russia because it's no place for her, and only the place in the prison. And I just draw Nelson Mandela, who spent basically 27 years in a prison, and then after he became a president. So for me, maybe I have to tell, remember I started to talk to you with the images from our Revolution of Dignity. Remember this, the drawing where many battles with police. This is why for Ukrainians, not clear, we don't understand when some Western people ask us or just explain us that for Russians it's very hard and it's dangerous to protest. I really call you don't to talk about this to Ukrainians, because we know the price. We know how to fight with police. We know this danger. Remember that I showed you, like in one day, 45 protesters were killed in Ukraine in one day. So we know the price, but it's our story. This is why we can't understand sometimes the reaction of Russian society, why I'm criticizing this, even the reaction of somebody who created a foundation to help Ukrainians who actually were suffering from the war. Here's Roman Abramovich. He actually installed a foundation which could help to victims of the war in Ukraine, and then we found out that the same foundation will give money to family of killed Russian soldiers also. So this guy, like God, he does help everyone. So he doesn't divide victims of the war between Ukrainians and Russians. For him, it's all the same. So this my drawing is about. Yeah, and here again, this kind of critique about some attention to Russian, and then sometimes we are, as Ukrainians, we just don't have any arguments to talk or to explain what we are and in which situation we are. And here, sometimes the reaction of this misunderstanding, I receive some invitations to be in a residency or to be in a discussion or in panels together with a Russian artist. And for me, it's so hard emotionally. And then also, I don't understand why we are put together, because the danger for Ukrainian artists is over here. We could be easily killed. And the danger for Russian artists could be to be in a jail. Of course, it's scary, but I already said, we know the price in Ukraine. When we were protesting against our president, so many people appeared in jail, and no one of those knew it in the time that it would be amnesia, and then the president would leave the country and they would be free. No one. And he has written that it could be 15 days in jail. It was mid of March or something like this. And the time it was not this law, which now could be like years. But be honest, me as Ukrainian, I don't believe that it's possible, because I don't believe that Russian regime would stay for many, many years. So I would never believe in it. So again, I'm talking about the level of my danger in Ukraine. So this is at the left, the drawing when me and my husband and my dog saw a rocket just from our window, 6:30 a.m. And then the right again, we saw a rocket a bit later, something like around 10 a.m. But in that time I was already quick, and I just seeing a rocket, I made a wish, because I don't need victory in this war without dreams of future peace. And he had the list, and all this list about actually another ideas, plans. I'm so much in plant story, and I'm an artist which is actually like to work with, I don't know, not about war, but or conflicts, just really like with nature or something around. So maybe next time we will talk about plants, not about the war drawings. So it's more critique how Ukrainians deal with the situation, and somehow they envy that international society still really like Russians and don't listen to us. Yeah, I'm very serious. I noticed this. And here is the drawing when I'm talking to Adorno. If you remember that he wrote that it's barbaric to write poetry after Auschwitz, and I put Mariupol, Irpin, Bucha, and I just imagine that it could be the same for Russian artists also, to write poetry or to produce art. For them, it could be barbaric, but not. They prefer to be still artists. And even for me, it's so sometimes problematic to produce art. I'm so ashamed that I'm an artist in the moment, because I will show you next drawings. For instance, here's my friend Alexander Kralkovsky. He's an artist, and he was working in morgue, and he helped to people to report all the tortures and all the all those killed people in Bucha. So he put them on a table and changed the plastic bags for them. You know, he's in a yellow gloves, so hard job. Could imagine he couldn't sleep for months after. So, and here another artist, his name Bogdan, and he decided to leave his practice and to go to the front line. You see his uniform, and here is Russian artist who wrote that it's so bad that this man did this choice. Better he would be like Matisse, who did draw flowers in the time of war. So he has a critique about Western society. I don't know if you know about this, that there were so many calls from even German intellectuals who asked Olaf Scholz or German government don't send weapon to Ukrainians. For me, the situation is like this. So Ukraine is defending and Russia is aggressor. And if not to give weapon to those who are defending, aggressor will be more powerful. Yeah, and here is more critic about this. Here as I maybe it's so hard drawing. This is actually Katerina Frick, who received the Golden Lion on the Venice. And later I found out that she also signed a letter which asked the German government, don't send weapon to Ukraine. She believed that this would stop the war. And I just imagine that her elephants, something like in a former time, people believed, carry Bundestag. I think this is the logic of this person. And since she received Golden Lion, and I also wanted to receive this Golden Lion in Venice, now I don't want it anymore. Yeah, and this is more critique about Katrina Frick. And I said, oh, maybe she believes that she's like a plant, because only a plant don't fight. When we come to a plant with scissors or with knife, they are the pacifist on our planet as much as possible, because they never fight with us, not with animals. They just allow if we take a bit of their parts. So they are creators on our planet whom we should actually follow. And those drawings, when I actually said goodbye to this feeling of pacifism on our planet at the moment, so it took part in Maidan, because when we had this violent resistance, which if we didn't have it, it could be more and more violence. I understood this. Of course, it was so heavy for me to lose this illusion, this belief in pacifism. I also would like to believe in it. I also don't like to even allow myself to believe or ask for weapon, but still the situation is like this. And here, all this dove of peace, or let's say pacifism, which frighten of, or Molotov cocktail, or the Russian missiles, they did fright those doves of peace. So we are very close to the end. Yeah, here it's again, freedom must be armed better than tyranny. It's not my words, it's Zelensky said. And here actually, Kiefer art, when I went to Venice, I went to his installation, and it was about the war which took part or took place in past. And I didn't understand why we have to talk about the war in past, because we have war now. And at the right, you see here is actually Kiefer installation. And here is actually the house destroyed next to my friend in Irpin. And for me, it's very, very close. It's almost the same. I don't understand why Kiefer needs to make his art pretend to be past if there is the objects which are really like eliminated by war so close, just recently, not far from Italy or Germany. It's really like in center of Europe, and here more. So at the right, it's the house next to my friend in Irpin, and here the Kiefer installation. To me, it's very, very close. Yeah, and yeah, this is the image that I'm saying that this is art of surviving, or me is an artist who is trying to survive. This is for me the real art now. And here again about Ukrainians who went to Venice and they could see the art, but they are reading news in their phones, and you see what is news about. 5 killed in Vinica, 9,000 killed in Mariupol. Another person read about kidnapped people. Yeah, we also have this. So yeah, this is a drawing about kidnapped people. And here, when I went to all these ruins and I'm standing, this is my face, and some people around who are from the house, which is destroyed, they try to clean it, you see. And here the plants, they look at the ruins, and I put the sentence that they woke up this spring in Irpin and saw ruins, because in February, they didn't have leaves, they slept. Yeah, it's a philosopher, Bruno Latour, who I liked so much, but then he just didn't know which tragedy is number one, Ukrainian war or Russian-Ukrainian war or global warming. For me, it's absolutely clear, because in the Russian-Ukrainian war, it's two tragedies in one. We also have so many shellings, so many fires, so many animals are suffering, so many national parks are suffering. For me, this war between people and plus against global warming, this is the tragedy number one, of course. I don't understand how he could be in hesitation. It's more drawing about this. You can check. This article is in French. So here there is a translation about his quote. And this is another philosopher. He also don't believe that Ukrainians need weapon. He believes that just as he said, unarmed corpse can win this war if many Westerns will come to Ukraine, and then they will help stop the war. And I just imagine that Ukrainians have to organize, weep bomb shelters for those people, how otherwise they can really survive in Ukraine. It's not easy. Yeah, and here again, I saw the dream that I saw that, or I did draw this, that somebody is asking me from the West, like, oh, we are so tired. And I'm saying, like, maybe you wish that we are all killed, I mean, Ukrainians. And this person, yes, saying yes, yes, honestly, because we are tired. And then another reaction, so many people ask, like, oh, Alevtina, can you tell when the war is over? And I'm answering like, oh, I will send you a postcard. And actually, by the way, mail does work in Ukraine. So it's possible to send a postcard. So I will send a postcard. I can't say, of course. And again, this is the last images. So much about this war. It's not Putin war, it's imperialistic war, as we understand. And I, again, sorry that so many people believe that all empires have fallen, but I'm saying not really, they are not. And here is more, again, this Petrovsky, what he's saying about colonialism. For him, it's silly. He believes that it's enough to talk about coloniality. We have to stop it. He believes, not me. And it's again my critique on Documenta 15. It was about the coloniality, and no Ukrainian artist was over there. And many people ask me why no one was invited from Ukraine, but only Dan Pershovsky was invited to stand for Ukraine. Dan, of course, is a great artist, but I really believe that Ukrainian voice is very important. So it's more images about what is about this war, that it's Russian Empire and empty heart. And here, something like Russia lost its own heart in Ukraine and trying to get our love. Yeah, this Russia says that Ukraine is not a state. And we said, like, we are a state. And here I am very tired because It's so hard to explain what Russia is and who our Russians are. Really, I'm tired. I'm really tired. And here are the drawings I did today. This is again that we don't have sometimes electricity, and I'm actually don't produce any videos or media works, or I do need, because this I can do using a candle. And here is a question to me, which is the best reading during this war? And I'm saying just new set of sanctions against Russia. And the last images, it's about the West, Russia, Hope, Ukraine, it's our world, and the dogs. Yeah, the dogs. So this is dog Cory, who was taken from Hostomel, and he lost his leg. And hopefully for him, he does live in Warsaw with the right. Ukrainian volunteers brought this dog to Poland, and here's my dogs. They were suffering of shelling. Until now, they also do suffering because we still have training in my village. So military training, I mean, and they still do hear shellings. And for them, it doesn't matter, is it training or not? So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alevtina, for this very dense and very rich presentation, rich in images, sorry, and in content. I was really literally drawn into this world of your drawings. I'm sorry, I have to read one question in the chat. Okay, I get to this later. Sorry. And thank you for opening up this world to us, I wanted to say. I think what I finally understood, or what I took out of your presentation and looking at your artworks, is that drawing or documenting the war means not only to draw what is going on the battlefield, or what is going on there where people are hurt at the moment or fighting, but that it also means exactly what you did, to include political discussions in Ukraine, in foreign countries, personal discussions with friends and colleagues, the reactions of the art world in Venice, for example, in Russia, all sorts of emotion, and that it's a very multi-layered kind of documentation and drawing and what you give. But before I go deeper into this, I would like to ask a very simple but also very crucial question, because I think you didn't say anything about this. And this is, why are you drawing, or why did you start to draw the war? I suppose there might be very different overlapping reasons, but in an interview you gave to the magazine Monopol, you said that drawing, now I quote you, drawing is the key to accepting reality, and that it was an important means for you to change somebody's thoughts about something. And I would very much like to hear more about drawing, so the technique or the art of drawing as a means to accept reality. And also, a lot of writers stopped writing, and you are drawing every day, not only one drawing, but even more. And this is just very intense.
I agree what I wrote to the magazine. I don't know when it was. But there is another issue, which is so much about a privilege to be an artist. When you draw something, you create a distance. And if you create this distance, you're not a victim anymore. I don't know, I think I don't want to be a victim. I want to be in a distance. It helps me. This is why I think I do draw.
So you mean that drawing doesn't get you deeper in touch with the events, but kind of self-distance you from what is happening to get, I don't know, estranged from what is happening around you?
Yeah, but doesn't matter. When you do draw, you still, you observe even yourself, you observe other. It's distance, I believe in it. And also, if you agree, there are a lot of humor in my drawings, I think. And there is an irony in my drawings. And sometimes I imagine some dialogues. I think it's kind of crazy a bit if I'm having a dialogue with Bruno Latour. He died recently. I even imagined that one day maybe I would meet him, and if he saw my drawings, I thought, oh my God, why you don't agree with me? But still, when you imagine that you do discuss something with a philosopher or even with Olaf Scholz, I think, of course, it's really like not true, but it still create something around you and put you again in a situation that this world really like bit depends on you, or you create this world that you're somehow connected to this world. Again, if you remember the drawings about my mom, she was so much stuck with her garden. And that time I didn't understand why she's going to her garden every day. And one day she said to me, oh, I went to my garden and I have forgotten the voice. I think it's a bit about to escape the reality was for her. And also she was so much struggling and really with her wish to control something. I think it's a bit alike with me. I also like to have some territory where I can control, because having a piece of paper and a bit of markers, of course, I can create a lot of around myself, even if I don't have electricity. You see that the electricity actually is off, but still we have internet.
Yeah, and when you're talking about dialogue, what I also found fascinating that you are, if I understood that correctly, sometimes you take reactions or comments from the internet. Let's take the comment by Katja Jugot that it's not Russia, but Putin who is leading this war. You take them as a starting point to create an image or several images or a drawing, and these images, and by this you make the subject more universal. So because it's not only Katja Jugot saying this, but a lot of people, so you make the subject more universal, and then it starts a discussion again, so your drawings also keep the discussion going.
But I think it's not just invented that this belief that is Putin's war, not the Russian-Ukrainian war. I also picked from the commentary, because when I post my drawings, I see commentaries, and it's again a discussion. It's again receiving some feedbacks, and it's again from those feedback I create more and more. Actually, the drawing is so much open discussion even. I think if I would be disconnected from the social media, but I was connected, it could be probably drawings about just my own feelings. But since I was so much connected to media from the West, also social media, or really like what my friends who are on the war were saying. So we are very, let's say, media people in the moment. We are really consuming, and we are trying to give something to the media discussion from our side. And again, as you said, from one hand, it could be a commentary from certain person, but still I try to do it's pretty universal, sometimes not. I don't know why. I think it's again, I still do art, I think, and art has this potential to be not so deductive, I believe.
Yeah, especially when you put as much humor and irony in the images as you do. And what I'm also wondering, you're using several languages. Sometimes you write something in Russian, sometimes in Ukrainian, sometimes in English. And I know there is also, yeah, the one with Scholz, you even use German. So there's very different languages. And I'm wondering whom you address with these different languages. So does it make a difference whom you address, either your, let's say, your close friends, or an international audience, or a specific audience for which a specific topic is the more interesting? Is this the way you use language, or does it, I don't know, happen more accidentally?
No, the way I use language, you're right. If it's in English, it means it's for international audience. If it's in Ukrainian, it means for my friends. Sometimes I do produce drawings with Russian text. It means for Russians.
Yeah, but that's also a pity that the others can't understand. But I understand this approach, because specific topics, specific questions arise in a specific context, in an artistic context, or in a Russian, Ukrainian, or in a more international context. As I said in the beginning, so the topic of our lecture series is documenting the war, but your drawings are by no means documenting in classical or strict sense. They are more, as you already said, a mixture of documenting and commenting. They are sometimes humoristic, sometimes there's a lot of irony. The style may seem, so it's very rough. It even may seem a little naive, which it isn't, definitely. And you bring together all these different layers. And I think that drawing, as cheap and easy as it is, as you said, is really a perfect approach, because it has a lot to do with perception and experience, in which in which external events can be combined with personal feelings, emotions, and comics. Can you say maybe a little about how you work with the elements of documenting and commenting, or how you balance them in your drawings? Or maybe you don't balance them at all and it just all comes out?
It all comes, I actually showed you really like small part. I think each day I produce like one at least, maximum 10 I can produce even. It's just really comes. But it's interesting that since I also produce a performance which could be preparing for 5 months, only one work. So the drawings is really like something which is, I can't improve some drawing. It's just I do draw and I know that I will not have even emotionally resources to produce another one. I just do draw, even don't remember what I did draw. Sometimes now I don't have time to take pictures of all of them. And sometimes I just could find some notebook and then see, and then I remember, oh my God, there was this moments, there was this feelings, there was this discussion. So it's just the way I really look at reality. And when I start to draw, I don't know what I would draw sometimes. It's really like sometimes idea plus shape creates a final result, which we call drawing, which is a line and plus text. Basically, I don't have drawings without text.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is that?
I don't know. I think sometimes it's so cool to be a writer. You look so smart. And then attitude to artists, we are not so smart, but we are, I think. I don't know. I think it's work for me that I need some words. I communicating. So drawings is a story. Paintings is more about atmosphere or feeling, probably. I don't know. I'm not a painter. I'm just a drawer. And for me, even a color which I use, it's also to somehow to give some idea, even which color of the text is important. It's interesting, again, since I picked my English by myself in Soviet Union school, I didn't have good lessons. So I do produce all those texts with so many mistakes. Sometimes I'm really like, people like to have some of my drawings and I see, oh my God, there is a mistake. For instance, there was this drawing which I did in the mid of February when oligarchs left the country. I wrote country without U, you know, because when you hear country, you don't hear this COUNTRY. So sometimes I really like need a dictionary to look how the word have to be written grammatically correct. Sometimes I don't care, just write as I remember.
And I think maybe you shouldn't care, because all these spelling mistakes in the drawing make them much more intense. They show that they were composed in a very short time at the very moment when it happened. So they also point to the quickness of the drawing process. It's all an indicator of how it is made. And I think it's a very important quality of your work. And you were talking about the feelings while you are drawing, and I was wondering, what about the healing quality, if one might even call it like that, of making these drawings? So maybe healing quality, it's really not a good word. It's a little overstated. Maybe I should call it, I don't know, psychological effect. So do your drawings have such a healing quality / psychological effect for you, or maybe also for your viewers, also taking into consideration that they are part of bigger discussions?
For me, maybe there is this therapy effect, probably, as I already described, but I can't imagine that my drawings can have this healing effect. I think they change mood. They can change mood, and they can also give some perspective which can help a person to look at the reality. I think this is I noticed as people told me after they saw some of my drawings. For instance, this drawing, when I talking to Olaf Scholz, that if he says that it's Putin's war, it means he put Russia in a situation they are not really like capable, like animals or pets. I think it's even I advocate in Russians. I give them their war again. So let they have it. So, and I wrote about this kind of conversation, and later some of my friends from Ukraine, they said, oh, we also say something like you're drawing two Germans. If somebody is saying about this war, that is just Putin's war, we say like, oh, don't look at Russians like at pets, which are not so powerful in this world, because they're just pets. They're not even wild animals, just pets.
I think this is what I meant when I said that your drawings, or drawings such as yours, are universalizing a subject, and maybe they help people to recognize their feelings, so also the situation they are in, because you give them literally an image for the situation, for the feelings, because they are so, your drawings are so multi-layered. I have a lot of questions left, but we also have 2 questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to read them out loud so that they won't get missed. So the first one is by Elena Willi. She writes, "Thank you so much for letting us see your work." Yeah, definitely. Thank you again. If I understood correctly, you mentioned that sometimes you are ashamed to be an artist. Can you maybe explain some more about what you meant by that?
I mean, ashamed to be an artist now during the war. So this is a privilege for Ukrainian to be an artist, because I have this opportunity to draw because my region was liberated by Ukrainian army. And I'm at least not under occupation, I'm at least alive. This is why I'm ashamed. For me, it's really, every day I'm thinking that my life, even if I don't have electricity in the moment, still easy that for many Ukrainians who are on the front line, and between those people, I have my friends. I don't talk about abstract Ukrainian soldiers. I'm talking about people I really do know, and I'm thinking about them every day. And when I'm drawing, of course, I do remember that I have a piece of paper, my markers. I have this privilege to produce some artwork even. So this why, I hope I explained.
I think so. There are 2 more questions in the Q&A. One by Sophia Schweitzer. She says, or writes, "Thank you very much for your work. I wanted to ask if one can purchase your drawings."
Yeah, they are sometimes very often on sale. And yeah, I'm fine to sell them. Even I would like to sell them all. I don't need these war drawings anymore, be honest. So they were done in order to remind people about this hard time, really.
So maybe Sophia Schweitzer can just find Alevtina Kakhidze on Facebook and get in contact. And the third question or remark is from Alisa Roskov. Has your idea of what it means to be an artist changed since the war? May I ask what your motives were before the war, and do you see yourself returning to them? Very interesting question, by the way.
Ah, great. Look, before 2014, when I started to draw my mom in the middle of this war, I was busy with consumption. So I did draw all these shop windows with luxury goods. You know, I'm from East, and for me to understand this seductive Western shop windows was very, very hard. So I loved all those commodities from the West, but from the other hand, I grew up without them, and I thought, I don't need them. So I was very critical to all shop windows, to all these vitrines of, let's say, Louis Vuitton bags. I was critical. But then when we got this war in 2014, I started to tell that very luxury shop windows are sign of peaceful life, because never we will see Louis Vuitton bag on the middle of the war when everything is under bombing. Of course, it's not possible. So I changed my opinion about shop windows. Now they are my friends because they remind me peaceful life, some peace. But it's very ironical look about this capitalistic science I was very, very busy with. Also, I was busy with many gender issues and feministic issues. I did many projects about this. And in my recent performance, which had the place in Centre de Pompidou, I was talking about feministic issue also. So those drawings, not so much. I think, again, if to talk about this critique, if this war so much patriarchal or not, but from this Russian-Ukrainian war, we do suffer, I mean, men and women in Ukraine almost in the same position. So we are just suffering. And there is some changes in this, let's say, sphere, I mean, feministic issues. I actually do think about this so much, but it needs more time in order to produce something which will be not just drawing. I mean, some research project or some performance probably.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. I have another question from Nanina Graf, who you already met. She writes in the chat, thank you very much for your important input and especially for showing and explaining all your drawings to us. I've noticed that since February 24th, you've been publishing on Instagram much more frequently than before. Is there a reason for that? And if so, what is it?
But basically my Instagram was for plants. It was the account for the nature. So when the war started, I just switched to this. I hope plants are not so offended about this. I don't know, just I was so busy with my own surviving. But still, I have, in spite of the war, some project in development related to plants. So time to time, I place some images about plants in my Instagram between the drawings about the war. So I'm still with plants. So I'm really like this world because plants are there. So they're my hope.
And I saw somebody raising his or her hand. Unfortunately, I missed it. In case there is another question, can this person please write the question in the Q&A? I'm sorry for having missed the raised hand. So now it's maybe my turn again to ask one or two last questions. We have 5 minutes left. Maybe it will be only one question, but we'll see, because in one of our first lectures in this series, Catherine Younger from the International Transdisciplinary Project Documenting Ukraine, who was our guest in the very beginning, showed a list of professions who document the war through their work. And at the very top was science, and at the very bottom was visual arts or artists in total. And apparently in the stage of emergency of a war, there is a question, or the question arises whether the knowledge of the arts can be of any use or useful in this situation. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the specific quality what only art, let's say visual arts, let's say drawings, because we were talking about drawings the whole evening, can do in this exceptional situation in wartime, during war? So in earlier times, it wasn't a question because war drawings were the only source of information of what had happened on the battlefield. But today, for sure, it's different with all the digital media and so on. So what can drawings do that other media cannot?
I think drawings, they do this fixation. We were talking about this. And fixation is so much about memory, pictures of a memory. And we do need those pictures of memory because we need to imagine future. If we don't remember what happened to us in the past, I mean, this war, what this was about, we can't build a future. We can't imagine this. So if not everything is fixed, not everything is written, not everything is drawn, if something would be like blind spot or no one pay attention, we can't imagine the future without the present time now, and let's say in a few months it would be already past. This is why probably we could be, let's say, even useful, if we can say, because look, when I was preparing those drawings for presentation, I just didn't remember even some of those, that this drawing that oligarchs left the country. I just don't remember, or didn't remember before I started to collect them. It's important information, and it's like so many details in my drawings. And it's the same with my drawings about my mom. I was doing for 8 years. This is really like anthropological novel, I would say. And it was very intimate conversation between her and me. And I'm sure no any journalist could get from her this story. She would be never so honest with them. So there's so much about that. Artists who do draw, they're so different from journalists, so different from the people who do take pictures. We're just different. We just do create something else, another content.
Yeah, I think what you actually do, among a lot of other things, is also giving images for an unseen present, a present which a journalist, a photographer, a filmmaker wouldn't see. Now I have 3 questions in the Q&A. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I cannot read them all. There is one last question by Matthias Meindl. You are understandably quite critical of Russian intellectuals and artists, even of leftist and liberal ones, as we have seen. Have you thought a lot about how you would behave at this point in time if you were basically the same person, but a citizen of Russia at this point in time? I don't know if that's possible, but I like you to give a short answer, because we are really running out of time, unfortunately.
My answer is, we don't need to imagine anyone on someone else's position. We have to listen those Russians. We have to listen Ukrainian voices. It's just sometimes useless to imagine. It's something like this feministic issue. We can't, for instance, I'm a white woman. How I can imagine what Black woman can feel? We have just listened to a Black woman, not imagine Black woman. The same with Russian and Ukrainians. Just talk to Ukrainians, listen to Ukrainians, okay, and talk to Russian if someone needs their voices. But unfortunately, not together with me, because for Ukrainians, it's sometimes very, very hard emotionally. So, of course, even in Ukraine, we have different opinions between my friends in this attitude to Russians. Yeah, I'm very critical. And about leftist, Yeah, I'm saying that only plants are pacifist in our planet as much as possible, but still also they can dominate. There are so many invasive plants, but again, we are humans responsible for invasivity. So this is my attitude.
Yeah. And I'm afraid that we have to finish our presentation and talk with this answer. Those who, Alevtina, thank you so much for being here with us, for showing your works, for discussing all this under these very harsh and difficult circumstances. And those of you who would like to buy Alevtina's works, please get in contact with her on Facebook. Those who would like to see her works about plants, please visit the exhibition Parliament of Plants in Kunstmuseum Liechtenstein in May. I hope everything will work out. And those who will be with us next week can look forward to Anna Hasselmann's and Juri Savchuk's lecture, Wie der Krieg ins Museum kommt, how the war comes inside the museum. Thank you, Alevtina, for being here with us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm sorry that I have to end this here. There would have been a lot more questions, but nevertheless, thank you so much.